we go. I'm going to share then my screen. What was this one? Okay. So if you're all here for the same thing, welcome. And if not, and you want to stay anyway, you're very welcome to also, yes, you all mentioned it's a little to learn about what the principles for interpretation and some of the things that we might know or not. And yeah, to do this introduction and as for the province, United States and Canada, Canada's province merging with Mexico, Puerto Rico, and Cuba, there's a need for a lot more interpretation. You've noticed in the ANAM itinerary prayers that they're always asking for more. There it was consecutive interpretation, and in many, many other meetings, there's more and more need. So it's encouraged to everyone that's interested to come forward and go ahead, and perhaps we can also have this as a promoted as for lay people as a way of income. Young adults, of course, welcome, and everyone, and not so young as well. So what will, oh, well, and me, sorry. Well, it doesn't say there, but as you might know me also, Jennifer Morfin. I'm originally from Mexico City. I'm an alumni of the Mexico City Sacred Heart School. So I've been with the family for a long time and working directly, well, before as a consultant for the Stewart Center for a while, and 3 years now directly with the Stewart Center. That's in the conference center is in Washington, D.C., but I'm in San Antonio, Texas. That also it's a place for need of a lot of interpreters every time more. I'm a certified medical and legal interpreter, and I also do community. Well, I used to. I don't do it that much because all of this has me a little more uh, busy, but I really like it, and what I really like most about it, it's to be able to have meetings seamless where communication would be a barrier, to have it just flow and go by, and to be able to be a voice to whomever can't have it directly. So what we're gonna learn, and one of the suggestions of one of the participants of last week was to go perhaps a little faster on the introduction in this part. I'll see if you see that we can go a little faster, signal or ask or whatever, but we're going to try to do the whole thing, and then we'll have some time to practice, and we'll have some fun with that. We will finish hopefully at the hour wherever you are. It's a 2-hour thing, and perhaps even a little before, but it'll be fun hopefully. So by the end of this course, you'll be able to understand the different modes of interpretation and the difference with translation that sometimes get very much confused or used instinctively, and it is different. So how to apply, how the ethics are very important, and what best practices can be to improve accuracy and fluency and interpretation, learn techniques to manage real-time challenges, develop more professionalism in it and ethical standards, even though if it's friendly, meaning it's important to have it for the trade also for interpreters, and to explore and how to handle all these different challenges that we may come, and they do come, let me tell you. So first of all, and if there's any question or anything, just open your mic and we can go from there, or raise your electronic hand. I also see you, but sometimes with the presentation, it's not that easy. So just let me know if you have anything while we're on this. Thank you. So what's the difference? And I didn't fix that. Last time it didn't pop up either. I don't know why, but if someone can tell me, even though it's not there, what the interpretation is, um, it's when you, anyone, any takers, or I will continue.
I want to be the first one.
Yes, go ahead.
Uh, I think it's when someone tries to convey an information uh, to someone in another language, maintaining like same context to be able to communicate with people.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Miguel. Definitely. And translation? Does someone want to read it or say it? Like, what's the difference?
You know, from my experience, I would say there's no such thing as translation. that every rendering into another language is interpretation. I've worked with French a lot, and you know, just so is Fran. You can't say it exactly the same way.
Yeah, definitely. I agree, definitely. So in that sense, I would say that more translation is written. Even like we can differentiate it from it, like saying like translation is when you write it down, right? You have, and we'll go to the next slide to have this that I can see. So let me make you a little smaller. The difference, right? Like that has this part of the features. Interpretation is spoken, translation is written. Interpretation, it's in real time, sometimes translation too, but you have more time, right? You can look into the thesaurus, synonyms here and there, and you can see different ways. But as you said, Lynn, and you're right, you can, like what I would translate, you would translate it differently for sure. Accuracy interpretation is approximate because you're going on and on and on in real time, and in translation it's more accurate. You have more time and it takes longer actually. The direction interpretation goes both ways, and translation, well, you're only picking up from a place and putting it in another, so it's just one direction. And the fluency required in interpretation is high, whilst in translation it can be moderate. You don't need to be that I was going to say proficient, but lack of a better word, but you don't, you could not speak that well, but still you could write it well. You could know the language and everything. So it's more about the fluency that knowledge of the language. And what is it that it requires? A lot of focus, no distractions. And I think most of you have done some interpretation. You won't let me lie, but I heard and I thought, well, that was interesting that it requires the equivalent attention or focus as an air controller, and that's why you need to have it at your space. Like if it's online and you can get away from people, you need to be really focused and only doing that. And if you're with other people, you need to let people know that you can't get distracted, right? You have to be on task. People that go in and out and all the movement distracts you. So the less distractions you can, as long as you can control it, because as I said before, it's not always controllable, the best. So you need to equip yourself whenever you're going to do it the best way possible with no distractions, letting people know that you're going to be doing something like that you're going to be busy and you can't even answer your phone, the door, anything, right? You need to be right there. And it's what I was saying before, it's giving a voice to someone that otherwise wouldn't be able to communicate. And yes, we need to be very creative because sometimes we do forget some of the most easiest words that, let's say sometimes, I remember once that I forgot seasons. Like they were saying it in English and I couldn't remember it in Spanish. And I was like, and you need to keep going, right? The luck was that it was face to face and it was consecutive. So I could ask someone else that spoke Spanish and said estaciones. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Um, but for example, if you forget the word green where you're trying to refer to grass, you can say, well, a green with something, you say the color of grass or something like that. You need to be just creative. You don't need to panic that you're forgetting a word or to obsess because then you lose the whole thing. And yeah, we need to do that. And what's the purpose as an interpreter? To be, as Miguel also said, to be as clear as possible, clear as communication, make it seamless to go through the language barrier, render the exact message. So sometimes the tone, even though if we don't like it, and to not to be noticeable, to be able to have the meeting, the conversation as if it were in the same language almost. So having said that, is there a comment somewhere? Oh, I just heard something. So the role of an interpreter, what does the interpreter do? Facilitates communication between parties speaking different languages. And sometimes it's not only two, it can be more. And you don't need to speak them, right? It's about try to put people into the same wavelength and convey the message. And it ensures accuracy and neutrality, and very important, like whenever you're going to do any meeting, even if it's very personal with three, it's confidential. So, I mean, right now it's not going to be so strict, but when you go to those small groups, what happens in the small group stays in the small group. So you can come back and talk about your experience, but not about the other two people that are going to be with you in the triad, because it's very important. And if you write notes or anything, you need to destroy. So you need to let people that whatever happens in the meeting, it's like you're not there. You're just being the channel to be able to get communication done. And we do not advocate, advice, or add personal opinion. However, there's some times that we'll see in a bit that we might have to step into some of these places when there's a cultural or some misunderstanding that has to do furthermore than language. So the code of ethics is very, very important. And so never to disclose anything, any interpreted information. Impartiality, it's very important too. If you have an opinion in any of the topics that they're being said, you cannot omit, modify, or anything. Accuracy is imperative. And professionalism, to be punctual, have ask people what they want to, like if they want to write your name, if it's online, your name somehow, or if they want the camera on or off or whatever, you just need to follow whatever they need or want. To have a direct communication, be clear with the role of has boundaries. You can't seem to be very friendly with one of the parts or not, because then people can feel uncomfortable. And be aware of cultural differences and communication. So this comes very on hand when you have people from different places that they speak, for example, all English or all Spanish, but they're from different places. So like in Latin America, there's places where it's not, like fruits are named different, but then there are words that in some of the countries are bad words. Not to catalog them as good or bad, but they're like rude, or like you wouldn't say it, but it can be a mistake, right? People in other countries don't know it. So you need to try to use the words that might not offend it. And if someone gets offended, just make sure like, hey, no, like in this country, this means this, and it's not anything that needs to, yeah, offend you or, yeah, get you off. So as I said, confidentiality. If you get some materials, you need to give them back or destroy them after the conversation or the meeting. Very important. I mean, maybe they won't ask, but it's important that they know that you're not going to be distributing anything that has to do with their specific space. Accuracy, to render accurately and completely without adding, omitting, or substituting anything. So if someone says a word that you feel uncomfortable saying, you try to say it sort of the same and with the same tone to get the message across. Manages the flow of communication, interprets everything being said to both parties, and corrects errors or maintains transparency if there's anything that needs to be said or done. Impartiality. We don't judge. We don't go with our values. And if we do have any problem with what is being said or done that goes furthermore than what we're doing, we must disclose. And it's better to say, like, excuse me, like at the time, either with this topic, I didn't know it was going to be, and it gets me activated or triggered, or I'd rather not, like it's better that you say it and that they finish the meeting and get someone else for another time that to go through if it's going to be a problem for you. And it's okay. It's better to say it. An example that happened to me was when I was doing school interpretations. You get meetings with the parents and the teachers with special education. It was on Zoom. I think it was in the pandemic. And when I got there, I was with the people from the school. But when the mom got there, I knew her personally. So I had to stop and just say, I just want to make sure that she's okay, that I'm the interpreter and this is confidential and it's not going out of here, but maybe she doesn't feel comfortable because we know each other from other places. And she was helpful. She was a little like offset when she saw me, but when I said that, she was like, "No, okay, we can go on. It's okay," and we just kept going. But that's better for everyone, and even the people that ask you to do the interpretation. Transparency. The interpreter says everything during the encounter to all parties. And if you want to correct or say something specifically that you might know or have information from other place, it's not your place to do it in that time. If you can do it directly during the meeting, I doubt it because you have to be very focused, but you can say it directly to the person or in another session. But it's better to not, and especially when you don't have that much practice, you can't really write at the same time or say something specifically to someone. So you maintain your role, your role. It's not your conversation, it's their conversations. You do not answer clients' questions or answers on behalf of the client. That's specifically like if you have a meeting somewhere and someone starts talking to you directly and trying to ask questions of this and that, you try to be, you're not going to be rude or anything, but it's not your place to become friends. Just intervene if there's a miscommunication, if possible, and make sure that the flow of communication is as smooth as possible as well. The interpreter should maintain professional boundaries both during and outside the interpreter encounter. And this, of course, varies if you know all the people. So if you're on the RSCJ and you're going to be in some of your groups, of course, you have involvement, but you need to you need to let people know that you're not as a participant, that you're just being an interpreter. So this happened to me last time with the NAM interpretation, the prayer, where it's only RSCJs, and the small group where I was, they told me like, Jenny, we know you're not an RSCJ, but it's important for us to, as all RSCJs that are very inclusive, to, so you answer the questions too. And I was like, I really appreciate it. I would love to participate, but this time my participation is strictly as an interpreter, and it's my function is for you to be able to communicate, and perhaps we can talk about it later if it's something that you might find interesting or not. For you, it might be a little more difficult because you are an RSCJ and you would be also invited to share, but you can't go changing roles because it would be hard on you to identify, because then if not, you would have to say it first in English, then in Spanish, and continue with the questions, and it ends up being very confusing. So perhaps you can also say that later would be a better time for that while you're serving as an interpreter. Then cultural awareness. It does happen, and with the provinces coming together, there is a lot of this that needs to be learned and addressed. And so the interpreter intervenes to promote meaningful communication across cultural differences only when necessary for communication without articulating either interpreter's beliefs or speculation about the parties or cultures. So you can explain what's going on if there's a misunderstanding. And it have to do with the language or with the attitude and everything, but you try to always respond to what they're asking. So if they ask you again, like, what did she say? What did she meant? You know, like, they shouldn't be talking to you. They should be talking amongst them. So you repeat what they're saying to you in the same, like in the first person, and we'll see that a little forward. So uses professional, cultural appropriate ways of showing respect and alerts all parties to any significant cultural misunderstanding that arises. And we'll see a little more about what happens when because we're speaking in the first person. Professionalism is honest and ethical, prepared for all assignments. When possible, ask for materials beforehand. Do you have any presentations? Do you have any videos? Do you have anything that can bring me closer to the topic, to the language, if it's more technical, to what's going to be said? And then if you get them beforehand, you can translate them and then have it being easier during the session. Yeah, that you need to advocate for yourself for having the conditions to support this quality. So in a lot of, let's say in Zoom, a lot of times people without noticing open microphones and everything. So you need to, whomever's in charge of the meeting, you need to tell them to please mute people when they come in, because if not, or if they start speaking at the same time and they're not facilitating or moderating, you really can't hear what they're saying, and you can't convey any messages. So ask them to be able to do it for you. And if you feel comfortable with that, you can also ask them to make you like a co-host, so you could mute them, like yourself sometimes, and have whomever is organizing to let people know that if they have, it's not personal. It's just like before, right? That Ana Maria had a lot of noise on the back, and so you can't really hear, and it's not because you dislike that, but it's you can't hear. So it's something that we might need to say and advocate for ourselves. Otherwise, people don't notice. And also that this is important because sometimes, especially with long meetings, they ask for one interpreter, and it's really very, very tiring, especially if it's simultaneous, to do more than 20 or 30 minutes. And so you need to advocate for yourself. There's only one interpreter and you have a 2-hour meeting. You need to ask to have another one at least, so you can switch 20 or 30 minutes, you can see, or one does English and the other one does Spanish or whatever, but you need to take care of yourself because this means being professional and taking care of the profession as well for everyone. Yeah. So for the pre-session, this is something we can do. You can explain, and a lot of times we just have the chance to say this to the person that asked us to do it. And a lot of people already know it, but if not, you just need to say that part, that we will interpret everything, that you're going to be speaking in first person. You're not going to say, she says that she did blah, blah, blah. You say it in first person. And even though you're speaking for everyone, people are seeing who's speaking, so they'll know who you're talking about, and you're rendering also the same tone that they are, that everything will be confidential and that they should speak to one another, not to you, and to tell you to tell them to pause frequently if possible. And they also, in meetings like that, they need to know that they need to consider that, it's being interpreted, and for people to please slow down. And a lot of the times they don't, but hopefully they can do that and ask for materials and any information you might have. So that's a little other checklist that you can have, and I'll send you the presentations. And if you want, for our sake, you can have also the recording. So just this crafting your introduction, just say, you can have this also checklist, like you're not an advisor, advocate, or advocate. You're not going to filter the messages that they're going to say. You're not a decision maker. You're not a facilitator, nor a participant. What you are is whomever's the voice of whomever's speaking. So be transparent. Don't leave anyone out. Ensure clarity about your role. Then you introduce yourself. You can say something like that, and pause frequently just to make sure that it's clear. This you cannot do in simultaneous and when you're in a back channel in Zoom, but you can't just stress the need of people slowing down before. And if you can, like if it's too bad, you can say that the people that are listening to you, please tell the presenter that she's going too fast, and then they can speak for you. But yeah, that's the only way you can do it, because if the person that is speaking or whomever is coordinating doesn't have the language you're speaking activated, they can't hear you. This is another short version how you can do it, and I'll give you this. You can have it. We won't go all specifically, but then if it's in person, where you sit matters. You don't sit with everyone, like you're not part of the meeting. Even that's a little strategic. You can sit behind. They need to be taking turns, not speaking at the same time. And also this, we haven't gone through specifically of the difference of consecutive and simultaneously, but words already say it. And the terminology is important to know, and note taking if you can when it's consecutive, because it's hard when you are interpreting simultaneously. And the position is important. So if you're gonna, the difference just between mediation and interpretation is this part. You have like two hats. You might be interpreting and accurately conveying the messages, but if you need to clarify something, you're mediating. You're not being interpreter. So this is about the positions that we were saying. So for online, I know in person, there's these booths. You might have been in different places where they are. I think in the chapter and in different places they did have booths, and in some of the meetings that I've done too, like some of the little rooms work as booths if you're going to do it online also. But there's also this fabulous little mouth booth that you can use with if you have the receivers, that goes to the transmitter and people have the receivers. So you speak like that, and you'll see it in a picture a little forward if you haven't seen it in person. And it really helps to have people not hear you or have the buzz on the back. So the only thing with those, if you ever encounter one and you're going to interpret, you need to speak really low, because they have an amazing precision and sound. So you need to really speak slowly, because if not, they'll hear you like that, and then it can be hard for everyone to follow. In virtual settings, I already talked about background noise, maintain neutrality and professionalism. And depending, there's a small picture here, and here the interpreter is in the middle, and it just says her name and then says interpreter. Some people like having you put in front English or Spanish, or EN as English or Spanish or French. The rest, and a lot of people, for example, in JCore, they like you to have your cameras off. So it depends on the client or the people that are asking you to do it. So that's important to also to know at the beginning. So the types of interpretation, we've mentioned it before. The consecutive, it really says it in the name, right? One listens, can take notes. Sometimes you can't, but if they go too much, that's another part where you need to advocate for yourself. You need to sometimes interrupt and say, there's no way I can remember something so long. So you can take notes. Another tip is sometimes pictures. If it's online and you put the closed captions, so there are transcripts, you can take pictures of it, so then you can read it as note. However, that's sight translating that it's on the next one. So it's a little more difficult, because there you're not interpreting. Well, you are, as Lynn said, you are interpreting what it says, but you're reading and then you're translating, and then, so it's sight translating. So it can be a little harder, especially at the beginning, but for me, it's something that's useful. And it helps with sometimes that the note taking can be a little longer. And I don't know, I've met people that do shorthand you know, that to be able to read their notes easier. And there's another kind that's summarization, that's condensing spoken while preserving key messages. However, that's very up to, well, mostly everything, but it's a little less objective because there's what it really goes directly to your understanding and what you remember. So, and simultaneous is more real time and often using audio equipment. Oh, sorry. So I already mentioned this. Yeah, abbreviations reproduce the tone. That's very important to the tone. It's and to have people hear the tone that the person is saying is very important. So if the person is trying to, like, mad or going up and high and low, you need to do the same. And we'll do a little practice in a bit. So this part also, speaking always in first person. So speaker, let's say, says, I need help with my case. Interpreter says, I need help with my case. Incorrect, she needs help with her case. And then it gets very complicated and confusing. Clarification techniques, you can repeat the word exactly as heard. You can, if you didn't hear it and if you are available to ask, if the person is going to listen, you can say or ask the person, and you just need to tell people that you're asking for clarification. So you say, interpreter requests, could you repeat? And then they repeat, and then you say that you repeat it. So that requires a little more, like, because if not, people will get confused, like, why are you asking directly? So you say, I just needed some clarification, and this is what they said. Ask. So if they ask you directly, not yet here. Oh, if they ask you, oh, well, yeah, let's say here. If they ask you directly something, especially here, for example, with a doctor, and they say, like, what did he say? I didn't understand. And they talk to you. What would you respond if anyone, like if you were in a doctor's office and the doctor explains to the patient what they need to do, you say it, you interpret everything, and then the patient says, no entendí nada. ¿Qué dijo? Can someone say? Like it,
Maybe we can ask if they can explain that and then clarify the idea. Well, not the idea, what the part said.
that's a good one. Someone else?
Yeah, but
Probably we will need
first,
to
first
know.
Miguel, Ana María. Mhm.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, go ahead, Miguel. Then Ana María.
Okay. Probably we will need to ask, like, I will ask the one who asked in Spanish, like, what kind of word is difficult to understand, because maybe I was interpreting medical terminology that will be sometimes difficult to be understood as quickly.
Okay.
So I will ask for that.
That is our first logic, and it's good thinking, but we cannot do that. We cannot ask, like, because then it's too long and you end up in a conversation with them and the doctor's there waiting, like, what's going on. So what you do when they say, ¿Qué? No entendí nada. ¿Qué dijo? You turn around to the doctor and you say, what? What did you say? I didn't understand. So you say exactly what the doctor say. So the doctor explains it again, especially, like, for example, with doctors or with legal, like, if you explain what they need to do, you are giving doctors instructions, and you're not a doctor. So even though, like, you might think you got it right and you could explain exactly what the doctor said, but it's not your role, and then you would have liability. So you need to say exactly what people ask or say, and then they might think, like, what, you didn't understand or you don't remember? You can explain. Yes, I do, but I need to say, and then you say, I need to clarify something. You said, yes, I do, but it's not my place. I'll tell him that you don't understand, and we'll ask to repeat. So then you say to the doctor, he really didn't understand. Could you say it another way, perhaps, that he would understand easier? And then he would say, like, oh, okay, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, it I think that our nature as people is that to try to explain and to facilitate the situation. But as an interpreter, you need to say exactly that and to redirect the conversation to what they're saying. And I'm sorry, Ana Maria, I should have tried perhaps you were going to say something like that and I didn't let you talk. Go ahead.
Yeah, that was precisely what I was going to say, because you're not supposed to participate in the conversation. I mean, if the other person said that, for example, that no entendí nada, ¿de qué está hablando? I just could repeat what the person said to the doctor. I mean, to interpret.
Exactly. Yeah, and if the doctor repeats it again, the same thing's going to happen. So, you can suggest to the doctor, like, hey, like maybe it's a little complicated. Try to just explain it another way. But then you clarify that you're in that role, that you're not being interpreter, that that's where the cultural awareness comes in, that where you can try to say or ask. And this can also happen in one of our different meetings with people from Mexico, Puerto Rico, and here and there, that something like that can happen, especially when people say idioms or something that's very specific to the country. We might not understand, and that's where we can come here. And some of my tips for simultaneous interpretation. I'm sorry, I'm gonna just mute you, Ana Maria. There we go. Because I couldn't hear well. I had some backup noise. So as you're very, very focused, part of your role is to merge a little, like get into what the person is saying. So it's very important to see the person and see all the body language, right? A lot of 70% or more are part of the body language, not only language. So it's very important you get into not the head, but to know what they're trying to say, because that way we can be more accurate with the message. So you try to think ahead, anticipate sentence endings. And it's funny, it's happened to me sometimes that I end up saying what the person is saying faster than she is, because maybe she's like, porque entonces lo que quería, and she's thinking of something, and I know that she's already decir es que, and then she says it, say is that, and it's just funny because people would say like, how are you reading it? But it's because you're reading actually the person, right? So you can't interpret phrases. You have to go with the flow, not word for word. Sometimes it's harder if you do it because grammatical constructions are different. So you really need to see what the person is trying to say. Maintain a steady pace and avoid rushing. If the person is rushing too much, and I've had that, and specifically people from Latin America, we speak faster in Spanish, and it's a lot more. We go blah, 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 that in English. So once for me, I think I can't remember. I think it was one of the Popular Education, and someone was reading a script, and she was going so fast that my tongue would, like a tongue twister, like I couldn't say it so fast, and I would say, "Please ask her to slow down," and she kept going and kept going because she was very motivated and very enthusiastic, and she never did, and I had to finish like that. But you need to try to avoid rushing. But that's why and we'll go deeper into that, but depending on the Zoom settings of each person, you have different things. And some of them you can put translation. So you wouldn't have to be sight translating. It would be translating. But it also happens that if you start reading it in Spanish, you are not listening, you're reading, and then you can get lost as well. So you need to find out and practice what works better for you. And if there's a specific word you don't know or understand, you repeat it in the same language. It happened to me in one of the migration calls. They were from Dominican Republic, I think, and they were saying some of the situation and legal, and it was very emotional, and they were saying a word and repeating a word that I just didn't know what they were, and I couldn't even look it up. So or acronyms, right? Like in English and in Spanish, if you don't know what it means, you can't say what it is, or you can't say the right position of the words. So you repeat them just in the way they are. And this time it happened, I think it was in Dominican Republic, and they were saying batelas, batillas, or something like that. And I had no clue what they were talking about, but the context, of course, and because I was very into it, I concluded that it was like slums, but I wasn't sure. So when I did it, when after I said batelas, and then I was like, I'm not really sure what I did say. Like, this is me just saying, I'm not sure what it is, but I think it's like slums. And then like the fourth time she said it, she's like, oh, by the way, batelas are like favelas, like small slums. And I was like, oh, okay. So sometimes you might get it or not, but that's what we can do. We can only say what we can do. Or if it's a very specific joke and you don't understand it because it's very local or cultural, you just say they did a joke that I really don't understand. It's local, or something like that. So, and you can try to say what you think it means, but that's as good as it gets. You can't do much more there. Yeah, and I already talked about this. And difficulties, well, that you can't interpret what you can't hear. So very important to have headphones. Well, if you're going to do it online, very important for you, also for everybody to understand you better. These are the best in my experience. The Apple AirPods, the ones that hang, if you move, sometimes people hear you, sometimes don't, and you don't notice unless someone tells you. Then you see people in meetings holding them, right? Like this, and going da 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 da. So the best investment is to do like these are not that bad, and they're not also fancy or anything, but the noise, not the noise, the sound is very clear. You move it around, like if you or to speak, and it really helps a lot. And the best part also is sound. You can regulate the sound. Sometimes when you're starting to do simultaneous, the sound of the people that are speaking will distract you with your voice. So you also, and that's different, I guess, for everyone. So you need also to be able to know what works best for you. Seek clarification when it's necessary, and manage speakers' pace. Use hand signals or so whatever you can if someone listens, but most likely you're gonna need to try to get as far as you can do. Yeah, fast speakers, you're gonna get them for sure. Just try to slow them down if you can, and if you can't, well, you do what you can do. People understand. A lot of people have told me, like when I've had a hard time, they're like, I don't know how you did it. I couldn't even understand in Spanish either, or in English, the language they were speaking of. Accents and clear, yes. Also, you can ask for clarification, or if it's something very important that needs to be done. I already spoke about this. Yes. And this is like, if you can see on the right, you can see here. Can you see my cursor? No. Let me see if well, you can see next to Boris. Boris is the first one on the right. Okay. So there you can see Janina with the mouth cabin and the position. So, and over here, well, it's normal meeting with specific headphones. I really recommend that because otherwise people hear you different. And what's my best advice is practice. Don't be fear not to do it. The best way to make paths is by doing it. It's like when you're in the jungle, you need to go somewhere. People go through with machetes, right? They cut the grass. So that's your first path. You start doing it and doing it. Then perhaps get the trail gets paved and goes on. But what happens when you don't use it or you don't practice? Plants will grow again. And we saw a lot of that in the pandemic. So there's a lot of places like this. And we're going to be doing after the third session that is in May 21st. And all of you are welcome to come again if you want. But we're going to start with a community practice. We're thinking meeting twice a month, but last time they said, well, it would be a little harder, but at least once a month to people that want to come and practice. We can do that. And we're going to, oh, and this is, for example, something that we're developing. And of course, you, Lynn, Francis, Itai, and anyone that might know more is very welcome to help with the lexicon, the glossary with specific terms. Because yes, sometimes we need people that are interpreters, but they're not that close to the family, and weird things happen in meetings. And once it happened to me, I was very embarrassed, but then it was a lesson on my heart because someone was saying in Spanish, it was from Chile, and they said, se subió a la Rebeca. So I was like, huh. I'm like, what does that mean in Chile? So I Googled it, I looked for it, and I was like, no, nothing. So I knew Kenny, so I went like, Kenny, what do Chilean mean when they get on the Rebeca? Like, what? And she's like, seriously, Jenny? And you call yourself a Sacred Heart family? I'm like, so for you that don't know, La Rebeca is the boat where Philippine Duchamp came from France. So like Christopher Columbus in La Niña, La Pinta, La Santa Maria, well, La Rebeca is the Sacred Heart uh, boat. And then I was telling that story with Mariluz Borja from Mexico. And I was telling her like, oh, Mariluz, because I knew her from Mexico when I was in school too. I'm like, can you imagine? I was a little embarrassed because I didn't know. She's like, Jenny, you didn't need to know. This was something we started using in the chapter 2016. So don't worry about it. I was like, oh, but Kenny made me have a hard time. And I think she laughed and very much enjoyed it. But those things we do need to know, we do need to learn, especially we're going to be doing more of this. And we're going to go practice. But before the practice, stop sharing. If there's any comment or question, and Amy, go ahead, Boris.
Jenny, when we're looking for clarification, when we are like in a meeting, do I ask that to the person that told me to participate, or do I do that in my same channel? I'm not sure about where or how or who's the person where I must to communicate, because
So-
it has to be like fast.
Yeah, it depends, but usually if it depends on the setting, the place where you are and what you can do. Let's say you are in person and you're doing it with many people, you could say, stop, I need clarification. Then you say in English, and then you could turn around to the person and say, querías decir la la la, or did you want to mean, do you mean this, or what do you mean with this or the? And then you say to the rest, I just need a clarification, and then you say what she said. And then you go back to the, to the role. If it's like you were saying on Zoom and you're in another channel, they can't hear you. They won't hear you. And sometimes even if you are capable, because it is quite hard to type at the same time that you're listening and speaking, if you can type and ask, sometimes people don't see the chat, or they're presenting like I was before, and it's very hard to see the chat, and like it's hard. So they won't hear you, and you need to go. So at the end or something, you can say to the person or the chat, or when the people are speaking and you're not, say like, hey, I said this or that, doesn't matter. But that's why I said like maybe at the end, but in the middle, like that's when things are going so fast that you can't really ask for clarification for anything. And you need to, as I said before, be creative. And sometimes perhaps you say, it once happened to me, I remember now. I think it was at the beginning when I was starting doing for the RSJ. I couldn't remember. They say los arzobispos. And I was like, oh my God, where are they? So I couldn't remember the word because I hadn't used it in a while or whatever. So I said highest priests. And then we kept going, and then they kept going. And then suddenly, like after, I don't know, 10 minutes or something, they said it again. And it came to me, and I'm like, bishops. I'm like, bishops. It was bishops, the highest priests. And then I kept going. But because you can't even clarify a lot more. But like you can put in something that may clarify for people what you're saying, and you say it, and they'll know that you're saying it yourself and not Lynn, while she's speaking and you're saying, but it's hard. And even though, as in, for example, in reactions, there's these little things that, can you see that green thing that says yes? It means like you're hearing. Then this one means please stop or no. And then, but people don't know, don't use them. This is slow down, and it even says so. They should, but they don't. And I don't blame them. Like, we're new to all this. Sometimes it's a lot of activities, many things going on. Sometimes people are moving with a computer or putting it up and down, and you can't control. Yeah. So yes, exactly, Boris. Or go faster, or I'm gonna go get coffee, or there should be one for a bio break because sometimes they keep going. And Clara Callahan the other day that came here, and I was telling her about that we had a very long meeting and we were like dying, and then someone was like, "Oh, by the way, we're just gonna go." Like, it was like already 2 hours, and she was like, "We're only gonna see the last questions that we need to see." I was like, "Oh my God, seriously, it's gonna go?" And I had been wanting to go to the restroom for half an hour, but you can't really say anything. But someone else, the other one said, like, "I don't care, I'm going to the restroom." So I'm like, "Me too." And we came back. So Clara Callahan is like, "Well, maybe that's one of your tips for your class. They need to get the pens." So I've never done that. I don't know if I would, but for that, but I don't know. But you really, and it's a good thing in a sense because you're doing a good job if they're not paying attention to you, because it's being seamless that you're there participating. But it's not that nice, because if you really need something, you can't do much more, and you need to be able to be there. Sometimes they will notice if something happens because they won't hear you, like if it's something very important or something. But if not, they need to keep going, and you need to try to respect that. So yeah.
Thank you, Jenny.
Jenny,
Lynn?
a question. When you're doing simultaneous interpretation, how do you do it fast enough that you don't lose the next thing while you're thinking? I've tried doing it in my mind, listening to
Yeah.
Spanish, saying it in English, or vice versa, and I miss the next thing because I can't
Yes,
fast
and
enough.
that's why you, when I tell you you don't rush, if people are rushing, you need to rush. You're gonna rush too, because if not, you lose it. You lose, you can't say it. And I tell you, you can use the transcripts and use it, but it's hard, and you can sort of save yourself, like with acronyms, with a word, with something, but you can't. It's a third task, like you're thinking, you're speaking, and then you're reading. So it's a little too much. So what I recommend a lot is not only thinking it, Lynn, because it's only there's you're only doing 2 channels. Practice it out loud. Watch. If you I recommend Disney movies, one, because I like them. Two, because the languages, like they do not only Spanish or English, but they do Mexican, Venezuelan, Colombian, I don't know, like many different. So the way they speak and the accent and the jokes and everything are very local. And then if you know the story, let's say Snow White, like you know the story, right? So like it's not like there you can really anticipate. But the most important thing is that you say it out loud, because it's not the same. And you'll start your tongue's like, "Oh, wait, they're going too fast." Yeah, but you can't pause either movie, right? Well, you can pause it, but if they're saying it is like, that's why it's different. For example, if you're transcribing, with the mouthpiece is specifically for that, right? To transcribe and to be able to record for medical, for many different things. But here you're not. So you really need to practice saying it out loud and with different speeds. And the what I found is the only way of catching up and not losing that train, because that has up into all of us, Lynn, is practice and doing it more and more, and catching up and catching up and catching up. And there's sometimes that you're already there. I tell you that you start going even faster. How it's like a little I don't know, I guess the Holy Spirit is there and I don't know, the paranormal. But you know, you get into with that and you can't think. And that's why it's very different when you do consecutive than simultaneous, because in consecutive, you can really think and you can say, okay, I can say it like this or this. Oh, but I'm forgetting now, or she's right now talking too much, but I can sort of summarize it. And so it's not that accurate. But in simultaneous, it's like you just need to really say what they're saying. So you can't really think that much. I remember I was once with I had some people next to me, not disturbing me, but that I was doing one. And it was one of the migration ones, I think. She started saying, you know, you were saying this and you could have said that. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but try to doing it when you're doing it so fast. You can't be pedantic or anything. You just need to go and, you know, get as close as possible to what they're saying. But of course, like if you had more time and you could choose your words, you can think about it, you would be able to say it more elegantly or with more blah blah language or whatever. But there the gist is to get the message almost as the person is saying it and without you thinking about it too much. So it's just like connecting with a person and just going. So yeah, but it's very exhausting. So at the end, you're gonna end up very, very tired. And hopefully you have, if it's for more than half an hour, you have someone that you can have turns with, because it's too much for the brain. The other day in the same 2-hour one that it was just last week, um, I could feel my brain starting to, like, even though we were two and everything, but it was too long. I need to go to the bathroom. Like there were too many things. I could feel I need. Oh, another tip, always have water. Water, yes, you need water because you're speaking a lot fast and you do need to drink. You will have little opportunities, but you can. But I could crave, I could tell I needed glucose. My brain needed it, but I couldn't eat it because if I would eat it, you know, it gets like water you can just swallow, but sugar or something like that, something else doesn't. So you do need also to take care of yourself. So I may, do you wanna can you open your camera for a bit, or do you wanna if Hi, Carla is also here. Thank you, Carla.
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
What about the notes? I mean, you said
The
that
what?
we need to you said that we need to take notes.
Consecutive.
Good.
In simultaneous, it's impossible.
All right.
You can't. You will not have time. When you start, it's a different function in the brain. So when you start, I don't know how to explain that, but it's definitely a different pathway, dendrites. I don't know. Like if you start typing when you're speaking and, you know, like it is a different thing. And if you start writing, it's also a different skill or place, or I don't know, maybe someone can explain it a little better, but it's harder. You need to practice it a lot to be able to do it. And you don't need to. Hi, I'm late. Oh, no worries. Okay. Yeah, welcome, Carla. So because I was asking Carla and Aime if you want to participate. We're gonna do right now practice. Right now, if everyone would go, it would be 3 triads, but Carla, you're driving. I don't think it's the best thing for you to try this while driving. So perhaps we can do 2 for 2 rooms with 4, or yeah. And Aime, can you participate? Do you want to participate in the small rooms? Can you open your mic? I'm late. I'm still driving, just getting home, and I'm a camera. Okay, I'll just